Hello everyone, welcome back to the Let's Play Board Game Edition Hope City review. Before I start my review, I want to make a small disclaimer. The designer of Hope City happens to be a personal friend of mine, but that doesn't mean that I'm going to be any harder or any easier on him than I am with any other review. So that being said, the first thing I want to talk about is what I probably would consider the most important part of co-op games and designing them, and that's the difficulty of the game. In a competitive game, you have the players interacting to count on that you can help balance it out. You can have people fighting against each other, so balance is a little easier to do in that respect. When you're doing when you design a co-op game, basically you have to create the game and then you put it out there for the players to do, and it has to do its job. I have played games that the mechanics of the system are just too easy, and they're not a lot of fun. You play them a couple times, you beat them handedly, and you never play them again. They never hit the table again, and that's not good. Conversely, you could also have a game that's too hard, that's pretty much impossible to beat, and you have crushing defeat after crushing defeat, and that also means the game's not going to the table. So it's a hard balancing act. So that's probably what I consider the most important thing when it comes to designing a solo game. Hope City, I do think it does a good job. I've probably gotten to play this more than I have played most of my other review videos because I got it earlier. Most of my review videos, I get them a week or two in advance, and I have to rush, try to get friends together, take them to as many events as I can to play it. But it's a rushed experience. I've had Hope City for 2 or 3 months now. I've taken it to a whole bunch of different events, played it with a whole lot of people, going from like hardcore gamers to people who are just casual gamers. So I've gotten a pretty good experience of the difficulty level, and I'd say it does a great job at that. I'd say probably we win about 80% of the time, which I think is good. It's good because you don't want to lose too often, because then you start feeling bad. But there needs to be losses. You need to be able to have an actual threat there. And I think 80% is a good ratio for the difficulty of the game. So I definitely think it hits the head on that. I might not agree exactly how it gets there. A lot of those losses, I'll talk in a sec, come from mechanics that I'm not 100% thrilled about, but we'll talk about that in a second. So the next thing I want to talk about is the objective cards. It's an interesting system. The price system, the costs are set up in an interesting way. There are 8 cards in each deck. So there are 2 cards that cost 1 resource of just the type, so one that would just cost 1 politics. Then there are 4 that cost 1 and then 1 of the other resources specific. So it would be like 1 politics, 1 research, 1 politics, 1 society. So that's 4 of those cards. And then there are 2 that are just 1 of that politics and then 1 of any other resource. I like the way that's set up. It's not random. Every deck has a set number of each cards. So you can look, we've already completed the Politics Society card, or it's in the fail pile, or it's in the future track. So we know that's out there. So it lets you plan, because really you're taking a big risk with that trade, because you trade before you make a decision on what you're going to pick. So it helps mitigate that randomness of what you draw, because you know what's in the deck. And I like that feature. I like that everything is set up the same. So while it's random, it's not too random. There's some mitigation factor that helps you work on that, and I really like that. Also, for the business track, as you get through further and through the game, as you expand the business track, it actually kind of removes that random chance, because when you can work with other people, you can pretty much guarantee, you have 2 resources, I've got 1, and another player's got the other 2. So we have all 5 resources available. We know if we get there, we can pay for it. So that helps mitigate, that completely mitigates it. But that's not till later in the game. So there's when there's more of you have more of it in the beginning when there's less threat, and then that goes away as other threats show up, as you get more punks, as you get other problems, as you get to the end of the game where you really need to focus on making those city sites. So it's a good mechanic that slowly disappears as other things become problems, and I like that. So now getting to more of the specifics of the objectives, there are two different types of objectives. There are your ones like vote or some of these that are very static. They don't change. You know before you pay, oh, I can complete this or I cannot complete this. So you don't have, there's no real risk. You know whether you're going to pass or fail before you even decide to pay. That makes about 60% of the deck, not 60 cards, 60% of the decks are like that. The other 40% are more like this. They're attempted resistance roll, so they're roll based. This is the part of it. It definitely adds that factor of whether you win or lose. It's part of what makes the game more difficult. Relying on dice rolls, it's not something I like. That's a personal thing. I like to be able to plan. I like to be able to know whether I can win or not immediately. Quite often, you do all your your known ones first, and then you get to the end of the game, and it's the last round, usually like the last turn, and it comes down to a dice roll. Whether you win or lose the game comes down to a dice roll, and I'm not a big fan of that. I know that's a pretty common mechanic, and like a lot of games, it comes down to a dice roll. I would have liked to have seen more of these static cards, less dice roll, but at the same time, I don't know, that would affect how difficult the game is. So it's something that I don't particularly like, but I don't particularly know should be changed, because I don't know how to fix that problem otherwise. Because it really does a good job of balancing it. And it really stinks, because a lot of, even the major objectives, a lot of those are dice rolls. Or draw things from the bag, and draw things from the bag is a little better. Maybe I would say I wish there were less dice rolls, more drawing from the bag, because you can mitigate that to some extent. You know what's in the bag, because you know what was in the bag when it started. You know what you've pulled out. The only problem with that is as the game goes on, you get more and more corruption in the bag, and that makes any drawing from the bag significantly more difficult, because you can draw corruption, and that is usually not included on the objective card. So that the later you get, those get harder. So that's really not an answer either. But it's not to the point where it hinders the game. I still enjoy the game. I would just like a little bit less dice rolling. So now I want to talk about the Phoenix Monument card, gaining the Phoenix Monument. I think that was a brilliant idea. I love the choices that this gives you. Basically, you have a set number of talents. You always have 12 talent tokens in the game, and this costs 5. So you have to decide whether you're going to use your powers or you're going to try to build for the Phoenix Monument. And that's a really tough choice, because you need to, if you're going to go for the monument, you need to dedicate 5, and be sure you're going to dedicate 5, because if not, they're wasted. And I love the choice that gives you. It becomes a dynamic. I could use this now and put it on the monument, or I could save it for later because I might need it. And it gives a lot of choice. It puts meaning to choice. And I like that factor. I really like that this is part of the game. That it gives you, because truthfully, the temptation actions, they're really powerful. They're immensely powerful. But their drawback is so bad that maybe you use 3 or 4 throughout the game. The talent tokens, on the other hand, you're going to use every single game. Rarely do we have a game where there's more than 1 or 2 talent tokens left at the end that are unused, because they're important and there's no risk to them. So it takes something that's pretty weak and gives it well, and I wouldn't say weak. The talent abilities are supposed to be useful, but not super useful. That's why because the corruption actions are so powerful, it's kind of a contrast. So I like having something there that makes them a little more meaningful, adds a little more to that choice. It's not just whether or not should I use it, it's whether I should use it for what it could do, or should I throw it on the monument. And that's something that I really like about the game. So I wanted to talk about the hope cards. They're really cool. They're really good. They're definitely something that helps mitigate the chance factors, because a lot of them have to do with either reroll dice or don't put away not fail a card because you can put it back on the bottom of the deck kind of thing. So it's good mitigation. On the other hand, I know you're supposed to keep these secret because to help mitigate the alpha player. Unfortunately, I don't think they quite do that. They're one-time use cards. There's only 5 of them in the deck, so you're only using at most 5 a game. Usually it's more like 2 or 3, truthfully. I rarely, out of a game, do you get more than 2 or 3 hope cards. And it doesn't really mitigate that alpha player. Because the alpha player just plans as if they didn't have it. And, oh, if it comes up and someone says, oh, we can do this, it's great, but it doesn't really fix that. So while it's a good part of the game, I'm not so sure it did what it was supposed to do. On the other hand, I love the Chaos cards. These, I almost wish there were more of them, though. There's only, I think, 9 of them, or 10 of them. So really, you're going to play 7 out of the 10 every game. I wish there were more of them, because they're really cool. They add a lot of depth to the game. They take a game, and they're a big part of what's so difficult about the game, because you really need to do them every turn. I mean, failing one Chaos card, while it won't cost you the game, it really hinders you, and I really like that dynamic. I just wish there was more, because I've played it a bunch of times. I just wish there was more of them. It's a mechanic that I hope that they keep building on in the future. So I'm not going to go too deep into the character cards because I know a lot of their powers are changing or have been changed throughout the process. So I'm not going to go into the specific ones, but I like the mechanic of them breaking bad. I like the idea of risking it versus risking temptation, risking the corruption. It adds a lot of tension to the game because, oh, I'm drawing from the bag. I have 2 corruption. Am I going to break bad? Am I not? It adds a lot of pressure that I think really makes the game more exciting, more fun. And there's having the doctor around, and whether or not you play with the doctor, because she has really powerful, by far the most powerful abilities, but having her in the game makes her a target, and when she breaks bad, it's really bad. So I mean, every time when she breaks bad, she starts giving out corruption, and you can only flip her back with building a city site, because she doesn't have a color. I really like that. The games where she's in, they're much more tense, because you can't always control the drawing of corruption, and I mean and also the temptation of using her temptation powers is pretty great, because it's really impressive. So I really like the Breaking Bad mechanic. I never really had a game where everyone Breaking Bad was a real threat, but at the same time, it adds another layer to the game that I really enjoy. So the last thing I wanted to touch on was length of gameplay. I think for a co-op game, it can't be too short, because then it's over too quickly and you don't really get to work together. On the other hand, you don't want a game that's too long, because it drags on forever. I think Hope City does a good job of that. 45 minutes an hour. It's pretty much your basic length of a game. So that it does that pretty well. And so overall, I want to say Hope City is a great game. It might not be my favorite, absolute favorite co-op game, but it's a game that I would bring to the table. I would be willing to say, oh, it's my turn to pick. Oh, let's play Hope City because I'm in the mood for a co-op game. So it's definitely a very good. It's very good at what it's supposed to be, and I do enjoy it for that. So that's all for the Hope City review. I hope you will check out my review, or my rules and playthrough videos as well. Also, please remember to share, like, and subscribe, and I hope to see you in my other videos.